Roll for Crit is made possible thanks to the support of viewers like you and our patrons on our Patreon page.
You can become a patron for just $1 a month at patreon.com/rollforcrit. You know The Princess Bride, the classic film from 1987. Everybody loves it. It's got action, it's got comedy, it's got romance, it's got fun for the whole family. And now, Ravensburger has adapted it to the tabletop in the Princess Bride adventure book game. This follows the events of the movie in order over the course of 6 chapters, which are played out cooperatively with a group on a storybook board that is separated into multiple maps, and you'll actually flip through the book and look at those different maps as you play and attempt to recreate the events from the movie without boring your grandson as you read them aloud to him.
Most mechanics will be pretty similar from chapter to chapter. First off, you're going to get to move the characters. You can either move one character up to 2 or 2 characters up to 1, more or less having 2 movement points. After your normal movement, you'll have a bunch of other actions, doing things such as trading one card with another player, discarding cards to get some extra movements. The objective is to complete all the goals on the right. These have different objectives, usually involve getting your characters in certain places and then discarding these story cards. They come in a flavor of colors, and they have different keywords like love or adventure. Once you complete all of them, usually that means you're done and can move on to the next chapter.
Within each chapter, there will be some rules changes so that each time you play, it will be a little bit different. First off, there's going to be different characters and different tokens that will have their own sorts of effects and different ways that they're controlled or moved as things progress. And while your main goal will always be to collect story cards and complete those challenges over on the right, there could be some wildly different features on these chapters. For example, in Chapter 1, you need Wesley to go around and complete certain chores, so there's a bit of a board management aspect to it. You have to clear the board of these chores before you can complete the chapter. And then in Chapter 2, you are on a ship and you have a separate track at the top where your ship is moving along, and now you have to spend cards to travel farther along that track. So it gives it a very different type of feel, a very different type of environment. And then there is the plot deck. At the end of each of your turns, you've got to draw one of these plot cards from this deck, and they have a number on it, and depending on what the number is and what the chapter is, it will have a different effect. Usually it's something negative that you have to worry about, and you're going to have to keep an eye on which numbers have come out and which ones may still come up that could hinder your performance later on in the game. You are going to play through all 6 chapters. You could either play through them all at once, or you can save your game. They call it bookmarking because it's a book, in between sessions. Each session should only last about 15 minutes, so if you were to play through the entire thing, the entire movie in one go, that would be about an hour and a half.
Oddly enough, that's about the length of the actual movie, so hypothetically speaking, you can try to race the movie.
You could play this game alongside the movie, and in that way, it's almost one of the most accurate movie games I think there ever has been. And that kind of is part of the way it works, because as we said, they very much use the framework of the film wherein you are the grandfather reading this story to the grandson. If you haven't seen the movie, that's how it's framed. And the plot cards are represented by the grandson. It's like, and if you lose, then the game says he got bored and went back to something else, so you have to start again. So because of that, you are actually recreating scenes from the movie because you're trying to tell the story properly, which I think is a pretty fun idea. And while supposedly they're going to use this adventure book formula for other games in the future, I don't know how different it will be, it seems particularly very, very appropriate for The Princess Bride.
Absolutely. I mean, because you are reading the story and there's the interruption. So like him telling the story, you are trying to follow it exactly. This is almost like note for note. You're trying to be like, this is what happened in the movie. Well, guess what? That's what you're doing in the game.
Right. So, it's like if anyone's read Ready Player One, there's a thing in that everyone's obsessed with the 80s, and they will actually go through virtual reality programs where they literally like take the role of an actor and just recreate that character's role in the entire movie. That's what this game is like. It is like you are just following that formula to the letter.
And unfortunately, I think that's a sort of a double-edged sword. Because for one thing, if you're a fan of the movie, it's so much fun to go through this and remember them because they have the quotes everywhere, plenty of the lines. But at the same time, it's it's sort of like once you finish, you're like, would I replay that? It almost is just like, how many times would you watch that movie? That's probably the number of times, maybe a little bit less so, that you'll play this game.
Well, for some people with Princess Bride, that's a lot of time.
That is true. That's why I'm like, your mileage will vary, I think, based definitely on how much you like the movie.
It is interesting. I am a fan of the movie, but it has been a long time since I've watched it. So there are a lot of little details where I really didn't remember exactly what the scenes were. And I do wonder, if you're not a fan of the movie, I feel like a lot of things in the game, you won't even really pick up on the thematic part of it, because you just kind of feel like, oh, these two things need to be in that spot. But if you do remember what the scene is, then I think it's pretty fun to understand that. And, I think I see what you're saying. And I think a lot of that is in how they present it. And, depending on your state of mind, you could get around that or not. I think another thing about this game is that, again, it's fully cooperative. You're working together. I think we both found it, because we played it together and we won pretty well, pretty easy. And maybe that changes on number of players or something like that, which I think is appropriate, because it's based on a movie that a lot of families and kids can really enjoy together. And I don't think this should be a super, super hard game.
That's the thing. It's like, it's hard because I understand your value in a game, and usually you want some replayability and all that. And it's not like, usually when I think of a one-time play game, I think of this heavy story game like Gloomhaven or even Detective, where I feel like it's really still like very taxing on the brain, trying to solve a mystery or something. Still, this is almost just like watching the movie, you're just having that fun time being the kid in the bed, having the story told to you.
Yeah.
So, and maybe, yes, I'm a fan of the movie. I mean, like you, I haven't watched in a while, so maybe I'm more guilty of enjoying it because of that. But I think that's sort of the point.
Right. Yeah, I think it executes that very, very well. If you are familiar with the movie and you want to see a game that brings that format to a board game style, this does it.
Crits and misses for the Princess Bride Adventure book game.
Crits. This game is very true to the film and will have fans feeling right at home as you recreate all your favorite scenes in game form.
This will make you feel like you're actually watching the movie, following the scene beat for beat, and add in those extra little flavor quotes they throw in, and you'll be happy with how the story goes.
The Storybook System allows you to experience different locations with different sets of mechanics for each chapter, while cutting down on setup time.
Those extra little wrinkles they throw in make sure that you are trying out different strategies and have to discuss with other players each round. Misses. We did feel that this game was a little bit on the easier end. That could be all right for you, but for some players who maybe are more in for the board game than the actual movie, that could be a little bit disappointing.
If you've got a lot of experience with other co-op games like Pandemic and such, then you will probably not take too long to figure out which strategies you need to win quickly and efficiently here.
Completing this board game takes about almost as long as the movie, and just like a movie, replayability probably becomes how often you like to rewatch these things. There isn't that much variability between play sessions besides which story cards you draw, and so for some people, this may be a one-and-done game.
As I think we said before the crits and misses, this really is, I think, the perfect game for fans of The Princess Bride, in spite of maybe a little bit on the easy side or whatever little quibbles we may have to throw at it. If you really love that movie, I think this perfectly fits both the atmosphere, the style, the storytelling of the movie, as well as the accessibility, because, again, it is a movie that I think anybody can enjoy of any age. That's what's great. One of the things that's great about it. And that's true of this game, too. I think that anyone could sit down and, kids would like it, even though, maybe it wasn't our Gloomhaven or whatever of the year. I still had fun playing it. And even just having it as a kind of a souvenir, if you're a big fan of the movie, because it's in this book format, it looks really nice. The art is all original art based on the movie. It's not just photo stills or anything like that. It has a pretty aesthetic to it. I think if you are a fan of that movie, this is one that you definitely want to pick up to go alongside your Blu-ray or your DVDs or whatever you may have these days.
I feel that this is sort of actually like just the upgrade of the board game included with some of the Blu-ray and DVDs. It's not a terrible roll and write, but it really is
roll
just...
Roll and move, you mean?
Roll and move, wow. Roll and move. Roll and write's a different story. I apologize. No, I did not mean any offense to roll and writes.
Yeah.
But it does feel like it's just like, look, here's the movie. It's like,
I guess I liked that. I mean, I don't know. I thought that was cool.
I'm torn on it because I actually sort of liked it because I usually, like, I've been playing some co-op games that are like, because it's co-op, we need to make this very difficult. So being able to almost sit through it like a movie was a nice thing. But at the same time, it's sort of like, okay, there's no like change things up or like.
I think it seems to bother you more that like I don't think I feel as strongly that lack of replayability. I don't mind. I think the replayability is like the puzzle does change with what order those cards come out, and we do have to discuss what to do. And I do think there's enough differences between the chapters that make them feel distinct, and playing them all in a row, like, oh, now I have to think about this track.
That was
and that
actually
track.
Fantastic going through each of those chapters. They were pretty fun to go through. It's just, I do feel this does feel more like buying a Blu-ray, I guess, than buying a board game. In my mind.
I just think that's okay. Like I think it's okay. We have enough of giant games that you can play a million times.
that is true. I just think it's something that you need to think of when buying this.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't recommend this to anyone who wasn't a Princess Bride fan. Like I'll say that. But if you like that movie, then pick it up.
Then do you think, because you said kids would love, do you think the next generation still loves something that's over 30 years old?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I fully believe that The Princess Bride is timeless. I think all generations would love that movie today.
I guess I'm so used to hearing people say so many bad things about all the old movies I love.
No, I think that's that one. This movie holds up forever, I think. I also love that it is like the smallest campaign game ever made.
It is. It's a campaign game you can finish if you have a life.
Yeah, so there's something cute about it. Again, supposedly they're going to be making more games in this series, and I hope they do more 80s movies and recreate different ones.
I would love that, because I've seen some 80s movies that are like, that's cool, but it's not the movie, so it's almost the exact opposite problem. And it still is a great collection for that kind of thing, to be like, let's celebrate the actual story by going through it. And I do love that whole book style too, because that's another small complaint of mine when it comes to campaigns. If there's a lot of tiles, to be like, let me find like the map set up. This just turn the page. You set this game up in 2 minutes and tear it down in even less time. It's very, very easy to play through and play again and teach to people. So if you've got a family or casual friends, or if you're just a fan of the movie, take a look at it. And if you have played it, you can let us know in the comments what you think, and if you side one way or the other on any of our differences in this review. In addition, since as we said, this is being part of a series, let us know in those comments what you think should be the next movie to be added to the series. I think A Never-Ending Story. Oh, that sounds pretty perfect to me, since it's another movie where you're reading a book that's also based on a book. Yeah, there's relations here. It makes sense. Talk to us in those comments. Until then, I'm Jonathan. I'm Will. And this has been Roll for Crit. Here's an idea. Support our Patreon or like and subscribe to this channel for more. Subscribing gives you a +2 to your charisma stat.